I'm here at the Cape Town International Convention Centre where I've just delivered a speech on the floor of the parliamentary sitting in the budget vote debate around the firing yesterday of the DA Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield by the President. And I think if we start to dig a little bit deeper into why Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield was really fired, one will see it was because he was doing his job. He was asking uncomfortable questions about the lottery tender award by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. He had asked some very uncomfortable questions about the transformation fund that is busy being set up by that department, and he had raised serious concerns about some of the persons being nominated for the board of the IDC. I believe that these are the real reasons why Minister Whitfield has had to be moved from that position. Now, it is very clear that this cannot stand. So, we have given the President 48 hours to act similarly against the other members of his party who are guilty or facing serious charges or who are mentioned in the Zondo Commission report, to ensure that they are held accountable. If the President is wanting to clean up his cabinet, then we would like to suggest that he starts by sweeping outside his own front door before sweeping outside the DA's front door. When compared with the acts of omission and commission of so many other ministers and deputy ministers that are sitting around the cabinet table, these are people who've been implicated in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. These are people who stand accused of very serious fraud and benefiting from the looting at the VBS Bank. These are people who stand accused of misleading Parliament and manufacturing committees that ostensibly selected politically compromised candidates for the CETA boards. How is it that all of these people retain their jobs, but Andrew Whitfield loses his? Now, we're giving the President 48 hours to show us clearly that he is a man of his word, and that when he's willing to take action against DA members, he must take concomitant action against members of his own party who are guilty of far more serious things than Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield could ever be accused of.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa fired a senior member of the Democratic Alliance, Party, as Deputy Trade Minister, causing further friction with his party's main coalition partner. Ramaphosa's African National Congress (ANC) and the DA have clashed over this year's budget and policies to address racial inequality. But the multi-party government formed after a steep drop in ANC support at last year's election has held. Johannesburg, June 26. Reuters. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa fired a senior member of the Democratic Alliance, Party, as Deputy Trade Minister, causing further friction with his party's main coalition partner. Ramaphosa's African National Congress (ANC) and the DA have clashed over this year's budget and policies to address racial inequality. But the multi-party government formed after a steep drop in ANC support at last year's election has held. The President's office did not give a reason why Andrew Whitfield had been removed as one of two Deputy Ministers of Trade, Industry and Competition on Wednesday, and said no wholesale cabinet reshuffle was planned. But Dolida John Steenhuisen said the reason was that Whitfield had travelled abroad without Ramaphosa's permission. Steenhuisen said Whitfield had written to seek permission for the trip to the United States earlier this year, but had received no response. He called Whitfield's removal from cabinet a calculated political assault on the second largest party in the governing coalition, and said Ramaphosa should instead fire ANC officials implicated in corruption scandals. Ramaphosa's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya did not respond to a request for comment on Steenhuisen's remarks. Political and financial analysts said they expected the coalition government to stay intact despite the latest public spat between the ANC and DA. Earlier in the year, the rand currency and government bonds dropped sharply over fears the DA could quit the coalition because of disagreements over the budget. But there was no steep sell-off on Thursday. Steenhuisen said his party would vote on Thursday in favor of the Division of Revenue Bill, one of the key pieces of legislation underpinning the budget. Despite Whitfield being sacked, the DA's federal executive is due to meet later on Thursday for further deliberations. Like and subscribe for more. Thanks.